says we're live, but it's on a different stream now.
Split it up. It's totally cool.
Yeah, I'm just have to make
part A and B, you know.
Okay. I'm gonna just copy it and see if anyone's still in the chat. Which I don't think so.
I wish I had the bandwidth. I can't have the chat open because my computer will be like, no. Oh. So I wish I could see what people were saying. I'm sorry.
There were so many questions.
Oh, dang.
Which I'm like, I have to leave that open so I can read all the questions. And then try to see this other one.
It's cool. We'll see it through.
Oh, so you're on the new one, right? Okay, so the new one is live. We're doing all right. I just need to see it myself. So anyone who is on the new stream, we're coming back.
We'll be back.
This is fine.
Everything's fine.
Part 2. All right. There. I'm just gonna put out on Twitter or something real quick and be like, "Oh, stream had crashed."
Yeah, I'll retweet you. I'll retweet you for anyone who's on my side of things.
Cool. Let's see here.
Tweeting on the air, guys. Live tweet. Part 2. Yeah.
I don't even know how far in the conversation we were when we
we'll just
crashed.
We'll just start somewhere totally new topic. Really cool. Okay, wait. As soon as your tweet goes up, I'm gonna retweet it, and then I think we should be good, right? I think people will find that.
Yeah.
I think. Hey, if you don't have at least one technical difficulty, you're not using enough tech in that case.
Right? All right, I tweeted it.
Okay, cool.
We got some viewers showing up again.
Yay! Welcome back!
All right, let me get this back over here. So we are now on screen again.
Yes!
Thank you guys for bearing with us. I did not catch when we actually went offline, so we're just going to keep on rolling here. I saved all your questions from earlier, so you don't need to repost questions if you posted them before. We will get to them. But we were talking about adventure writing and the dramatic question of things.
Yeah. We talked about playtesting.
Playtesting. We were talking about playtesting.
I stealth my playtests on my players. They don't know what's happening.
The reason I thought that was interesting and why I was like, I wanted to know more was because Matt, the Pickled Dragon, has a very opposite approach where he has a dedicated team of playtesters. Mm-hmm. And you were saying that there's definitely is a difference of attitude when people approach playtesting versus just playing a game. So how has that impacted the actual information that you're looking for from a playtest? Do you have something you're like trying to get out of a playtest, or do you just kind of go at it and see what sticks?
It's, I always think I want to know specific things like, are they going to like this encounter? Or like, are they going to trust this NPC? And then I always end up getting way different information than I was expecting anyway. But but I think what I just want to see is if they kind of get what's going on. And, if they like make like really brilliant fun of an NPC's name, I'm like, oh, I should change that name. Like if it sounds like Squeaky Butts or something, like they'll definitely start calling them Squeaky Butts. So then I'm like, I can change that and no one knows the difference. So I think I get a little bit more of like a genuine, like my players don't hopefully feel like they're super high stakes or that they're offending me personally if they don't like something that I'm play testing for them. So I feel like I get more genuine reactions out of them with things in that case.
That's a good idea. I kind of like that because I've run into that. Not quite the same problem. I've only really done 1.5 playtests for the adventure I published, but the first one I found out that I had way too much content,
Mm.
and the players in it, they knew it was a playtest, but they never got to the meat and potatoes that I wanted to, which immediately
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I got to chop off 75% of this adventure because
Oh,
it's not a
wow.
one-shot anymore. Um, but then I did kind of see that difference of people approach it as a playtest versus approach it as regular players, um, which that's interesting. Other people I talked to tend to go for the dedicated playtesters or people who think in that kind of mindset. But it'd be so much easier to just stick it in your game.
Yeah, and I got this advice from a very wise person once, which was that a lot of times people will know that there's something wrong, but they don't know how to fix it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's so true because like if something's not working for your players, that's all the information you need. But if you will get 10 different opinions on how to fix something if that's the case. And um not all of those ideas are going to end up being what you need. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just better to know if it's not working rather than what each individual thinks you should do about it, because what you do about it is up to you in the end. So,
Yeah, I had also found that myself too. Of like, I like to know the
mhm.
problems, but I'll find the solution for
Yeah,
myself. um,
exactly. It's a little better that way, I think.
yeah, and then that keeps it more like it's still in your control, and it's kind of a weird approach to it. When you're DMing, you're okay. You got to let go of control, but when you're writing an adventure, found sometimes you just got to maintain a little bit of that control yourself. Um,
Hmm.
have you found that, or is it a lot easier for you to just be like, put that out there?
Yeah, no, I think what you said was actually very insightful. That it's so true that DMing the secret is letting go of control, and writing the secret is maintaining your control, you know, even if you're getting a lot of opinions from the other side sometimes.
Hmm.
I mean, like not to say that you should ignore what people are
Right.
saying as if it's critical, um but ultimately the decisions that you make are really only they're so complex sometimes that
Hmm.
it's really hard for someone on the outside to get the full reasoning behind it,
Yeah.
so you have to
Interesting.
balance that.
Yeah. Um, Side question: have you ever seen this RPG writer workshop program? Ashley
Yes, is
Warren,
it
have you participated in that in any way?
I did, so I when it was brand new, I got one of the a chance to sign up for it.
Hmm.
And I know it was like article based, and like there were guest writers who were
Hmm.
talking about specific topics, and I thought it was so cool. I mean, like I always get something out of anything like that. Like advice from other writers is still to this day like
Hmm.
fantastic.
Yeah, I've done that course now twice, and both times
Nice.
I did it, I did not finish my adventure.
Oh no, it's
But
okay.
then I
Like
finished it afterwards, and that's
there
cool.
you go.
But the question I wanted to ask you from that, which I had a good question, and it will come back.
It will come back like we did on YouTube. We
Yeah.
came back.
Now I'm having the disconnect issue here, where I'm like, oh, I had a really interesting question. Ah,
The pressure is
I'm like,
on. No, it's okay.
anyways, we'll just move on.
You'll think of it, yeah.
Oh, now I remember. In that course, they present kind of a structured approach to it, not necessarily like here's how you write a plot necessarily, but it's more like kind of a step-by-step creative process when coming up with adventure. They present so people can come up with their own method. Do you have a creative process for your adventures, and what does that look like?
Yes. I mean, I do. I usually like I have to let the idea stage kind of float around like we sort of talked about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
where like it's like generally based on images or concepts that I like one thing that I think is cool. And I usually have to stew on ideas for a while. Like it's rare that I would have an idea and then I sit down to write the next day. Um
Mm-hmm.
so I usually spend time kind of trying to just let ideas cook around. And then once I feel like I have enough to actually take an adventure in a trajectory, like I know the main problem and I can think of a couple like cool encounters, then I'll actually sit down and the next step of my process is I have like an adventure template that I made for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just like 10 pages with every possible encounter type sort of pre-formatted.
Oh,
So like a social encounter, a combat encounter, or like a, a room just like exploration based event or like a roll table. Um, and I will snip the bits out I don't need depending on what kind of encounter I'm working on, and then just start writing into the template that I have. And I found that to be so helpful. Like having a template takes a ton of like the how am I going to format, like the decision making that can really people don't realize that a lot of times it's those small questions that stop them. It's not
yeah.
the writing or the creativity that stops them. It's the how am I going to get this down on the page that stops them.
Yeah.
And that really removes that element as a problem. So yeah, that's what I
Okay.
do. Then keep
All
writing
right.
until it's done.
So then when you so what percentage, speaking numbers, my brain works a lot in like very, step-by-step methods. How long would you spend idea coming up with your idea and making up your creative side of your story versus actually sitting down and getting it onto your template and then onto paper? What's like the split
Yes.
up like?
So the thinking and sort of planning is probably twice as long as writing. Because like what I want to do is come to an adventure with at least like a rough outline of what happens. So I usually don't know every encounter going in, but I'll
Hmm.
probably know at least half. Um, and like I'll know like what the final encounter is going to be because you want to know who the bad guy is going in or what the problem is. Um, and I'll know one or two in between, and so I'll try to write out like just a little quick notebook page where I'm like, first encounter is a combat, and then the second one is going to be like a role playing or combat, depending what they do, and then the third one is going to be getting to the adventure site, and then the fourth one is going to be the guardian of the adventure site. So I try to have like a bird's eye view of the pacing, like combat, role playing, combat, exploration, social, combat, and I'll look
Hmm.
at it in that way to make sure that there's variation. Um, and that all pulls from the planning. So once I have that all planned, then it's really easy to write because you kind of already know a lot of what's going to happen and you
Hmm.
don't feel so stuck.
Yeah. That's interesting. That is a really good point. I always found getting stuck on the writing, um, which I'm learning. I'm learning pre-planning, outlining is so helpful, so very
It
helpful.
can be. It
It
is. I
can
mean,
be.
a lot of people, there's some people who hate outlining, but
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have control over the pacing unless I have it pretty decently outlined before I
Hmm.
sit down.
There's a lot of people I know use kind of a mind map with like the
Hmm.
webs and the circles. I could never figure that out. Have you ever tried using one of those?
You know, I I kind of have, but you're it's same thing as I've never found it to really translate well into like writing for me. Um, I do draw like when I'm first writing out like the flow of an adventure, I will draw like a circle and then like a line to another thing and then a circle leading off to the other branching paths.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get like a visualization of the possible like flow of the adventure, but that's
Oh.
about as far as I go on like the
Mm-hmm.
circles and lines type mind map thing.
Yeah.
But that alone is helpful. Just being like, this encounter could go here or here. Here's what those two are. Those two might come together right here.
Yeah. I can see that way being helpful in that
Yeah.
sense. That's interesting. All right. We got to shift gears and get on these questions because
Okay.
somehow we've had more viewers on your stream than ever before, and we have so many
Whoa.
questions. They
Thanks, you
brought them
guys.
from the very beginning, so we're gonna try to get through these.
Sure.
um, the first one comes from the Bearded Nerd TV, who was on the show actually. So if you guys haven't seen that one, go watch it. He's
Hi.
asking, what is the most difficult part about publishing your own adventure?
Ooh, wow, that's a great question. The most difficult part, I think, is um, I think it's when you first let it out into the wild and you're afraid that someone's going to email you about a glaring hole that they found in the plot like 3 minutes after you release it. I think for me, the anticipation. But the most difficult part is the beginning and the end for me. So the beginning, like the thinking, the coming up with ideas, letting it cook, like that process can take some time. And I feel like that's where most people give up. But if you get through that, then it's easy. I don't think it's easy, but it's you can see the end. Like there's a light at the end of the tunnel
Hmm.
and you can push toward it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a really good point. I like your point though about once it's out there, it's kind of it's no longer in your little protective the egg, and it's out there and it's gonna fall out of the tree.
Yep.
because it's in a baby bird. I just remember it just brought back this moment after I published mine. I got a message from a guy on Instagram. He goes by
Mhm.
I'm not Kevin Bacon. But he was like, I picked up your adventure. I'm going to run it for my kids. And the first thing I thought of was, no, please don't. Like, don't do it. I don't want to
Don't.
know.
Not for kids. No.
But, well, I was more worried, like, oh, I was sure it was a terribly written thing and it was not going to
Oh
be
no.
fun. But then it came back later. He was like, oh, it was really fun. They were able to get through it without fighting anything and it was good. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Ah,
That's nice to know.
phew.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that is a big hurdle that I think a lot of first-time writers would run into themselves. What do you keep in mind when you're publishing your adventure to just ground yourself in case something
Yeah.
comes back?
So that, I mean, that again is also a good question because you cannot please everybody. And like for as many nice things as I've had people say about my adventures, I've gotten some like lacerating critiques too. And so it's, those sometimes hurt, but there's like a lot of truth and information in them. So being
Mm-hmm.
fearful of other people's opinions can definitely make you like not want to put your work out there. But um I just always think, you can't please everybody. Like, and if I liked what I wrote, if I thought it was fun, and if my players thought it was fun, and I had fun writing it, and I know they had fun playing in some of the encounters, like
Mm-hmm.
chances are people are going to get something good out of it in that case.
Yeah.
You got to trust that you liked it, therefore someone else is going to like it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. Moving on in questions. This is a totally different
Yes.
subject. The question is from Matthew Jack, and he asks, have you ever run games for younger children? How would you go about changing certain aspects of rules to do so?
Ooh, yes, I have actually. Often I've run games for kids, and I think it really depends. It's surprising because kids, like especially like maybe middle school or like late grade school, some of them might have a very deep knowledge of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and others might be first timers. I mean that's true at any walk of life, I guess. But um, I try to keep the game focused on problem solving and not the rules around how to solve it. So um, I think with kids in particular, like you maybe take a slightly stronger hand in guiding them as the DM towards what the actual problem at hand is. Um, and keeping the rules and roles kind of simpler never hurts. Um, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like but I think at the end of the day, running a game like that for adults is great too. Like I try to keep as the rules as direct and straightforward. And like if something gets thorny, like if you guys like we have to look up the grappling rules right now and stop combat to do that. I mean, I would just honestly table rule it. Like
Mm-hmm.
make opposed strength checks or something just to keep things moving and then it doesn't devolve into a fight. you
Yeah.
know?
Which that's a really good tip for running children. Okay, I had to double check, make sure we're still live on the other page. Okay,
Whew.
continuing on. There's so many. Uh, what are your favorite non-combat or face character encounters? So maybe you take one encounter
Ooh.
that you made up that you really enjoyed that was non-combat.
Gosh, yeah. So, well, I have this one fresh in my mind because I just released this adventure, but the adventure I just released has an encounter with a Merid. And a Merid is like an overwhelming foe for the level that this was written for. And I mean, the players could fight and win. It would just be very difficult for them, but they'd get hurt pretty bad. But um, I love that social encounter because it's all about just trying to win over this Merid. And if he doesn't like the players, he just straight up doesn't help them. And getting his help is really useful. It's like, and so I love writing encounters where like it's just as likely that the players are going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Because then if they succeed, they get something really fun, and then they can tell that it wasn't like a gimme. Like they really have to win this Merid over in order to get his assistance, and fighting him is a terrible idea. So that's a
Yeah.
fun thing.
So how do you? Okay, now this is a tangent question. How do you not feel bad as a DM when they botch up an encounter like that? Have you? Because I have that problem where I'm like I give them a thing and they're saying all the wrong things to this character, but then I feel bad, so I kind of throw them a bone. How do you avoid that?
Yeah, and like Richard, I think there's like that's fine to do. It's like based on like the players, like what you know, you got
Right.
to read the room, and if they're going to be devastated or like not get critical information that they need, yeah, you can throw them a bone. But um, I yeah, I think it's kind of fun to show the players that they can fail in a way that's not going to kill them,
Mhm.
you know, because it makes the world more real and then it makes the victories more satisfying. So usually if they like make the Merid mad and they aren't able to get help from him, I mean, I would have a ton of fun like playing the like irritated Merid who's like, get out of my sight, you know, like I think that's a lot of fun and at least they're not going to die in that case, you know.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good advice right there.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. This is from Tony. One of his questions. Do you prefer to work on adventures by yourself or do you collaborate with others?
Ooh, I you know, I usually work by myself on adventures because I have a really particular writing style, like formatting wise and all of that. And it's kind of the same thing with minimalism. Like I love ideas from other people and I've definitely written collaborative adventures with other people, but I feel like I'm less beholden to the material and having to cut it or change it if it's just mine, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I'm not going to feel like I'm hurting someone's feelings if something doesn't work out in a play test and um I kind of like having that flexibility.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in trying to work with someone to create something than working on your own. It's a whole different ball game. Like,
It's tough. It's its own skill outright. You know, it was
yeah,
collaborating. And I mean, I've written some adventures with some wonderful people. We had wonderful collaborations, and I'm so glad we did them. But um, I think it's also hard to find someone who you can work with in a very easy, open way in that
mm-hmm.
manner. I think you have to know the person decently well before you write an adventure with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Hmm.
kind of like a business or a part or any relationship really, where it's like you got to know what you're dealing with, how to approach the situation, and you have to be comfortable enough to work on it your way, or else you're not working on it to the best of your
Yeah.
abilities. Yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
So that's a really good one. But then the follow up question from Tony as well. He is also asking, do people send you their work sometimes to ask for advice every so often?
They
And
do. They do. You know what's so funny? I love when people send me ideas and cool things they're working on. Um, but a lot of the times I can't read it because of copyright concerns. You
mm,
know, it's so funny. Like, um, if someone sends me like an almost fully realized adventure and asks my opinion on it, and I read the whole thing, and then if anything I write has elements of like if it was even tangentially inspired, like it just gets like so thorny. So,
yeah.
um, I love helping people with like specific ideas and questions that they have because I feel like I can safely do that without
Hmm.
accidentally like ingesting their IP and then somehow regurgitating it later on accident or something like that would horrify me. So I try to avoid that. But um, who said there was a famous writer who doesn't read anybody's work because he's afraid of that. But
Who I
I
don't
can't remember
know.
who it
I'm
is.
terrified of that whole concept. And here's just another tangent story because the idea it's I forgot the actual name for it. Kind of like when you kind of come up with the same idea at the same time, and if you see something and
Yes.
it's like, oh, I had that same idea, and if like in your situation, if you're working on an adventure and it seems like someone else that you've read, it's kind of a weird area to be in, kind of
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable. I found out after doing this show for 3 weeks that Nerdarchy has the exact same show. They do a daily morning talk show, um, which I was like, I didn't watch it. I don't never seen that before. But then I was like, oh crap, did I copy that accidentally? How did this happen? Uh,
Oh
it's a
no,
scary
yours is
way to
better.
be, but I think the way you said, coming up with, you know, very specific things for getting, and I feel like that goes for all creators who people seek advice from. Rather than giving them the whole dump of here's my entire adventure, get small bits that they might be able to help with, um, and that just makes it
Yeah,
easier too.
it does. It does. Yeah, because like reading a whole adventure, I mean, there's some you put so much work into writing it. I have to try to get on your level if I'm going to help you when I read something like that, and it's a huge investment. So, um oftentimes I can help someone better if they just ask a specific question.
Mm-hmm.
for what my opinion's worth. It's not like I know the right answer to everything either, but yeah, that's a very
Opinions are
interesting
opinion. That
question.
is.
Hmm.
So thanks for answering that one. That's it could be a tough question sometimes.
Hmm.
Carrying on, more publishing questions.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for DMs who want to write their own adventure for publishing?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's first of all, do it. Like it's so worth it. It's so fun. Um, Go with what you think is cool and like don't overthink it. If you again, like we kind of touched on this earlier, if you're having fun with your idea and it
Mhm.
excites you, like that's the only litmus test you need. Like if you think it's cool, then someone else will.
Yeah.
And get familiar enough with publishing rules and laws, which it's funny because Richard and I were talking about this. Like there's a little bit of a barrier to entry with the open gaming license and the fifth edition system reference document. Um, but do not let those stop you either because Wizards wants people to publish material, like third party material, and they tried to make these things as approachable as possible so that you wouldn't be deterred. So um, just treat it like
Yeah.
you're trying to read the Artificer class for the first time and you'll get through it. Yeah.
Yeah. My one advice that I picked up on was that copyright issues, the SRD and the OGL, are like they're very valuable, right? But they can be complicated. So for my adventure, I published it on DM's Guild first because I didn't want to deal with having to comb through the OGL and figure out everything that I could and could not use. But
Mm-hmm.
then it's important to remember and read the fine print on DM's Guild that once something's published there, you cannot publish it somewhere else. You can't put it on your own website. It's got to just live on DM's Guild. Um,
Yeah, even if you take it down. So just know
yeah.
that.
So you got to
Hmm.
know those kind of little details, I think. But yeah, I agree. Just do it. It's fun.
Those are the two big gotchas, really. I mean, yeah, those are the two big, like, oh, I wish I'd known that things.
Hmm.
But DM's Guild is a great place to put some of your preliminary work, I think, or anything really. But, um,
Yeah.
I love self publishing though, too. So,
Yeah, there's pros and cons, I think, to both ways of doing it, which
yes.
you've
Hmm.
become more familiar with than anyone else I know. Since you
Really?
have
Oh,
your,
thank you.
because you have your website where you publish like a lot of your stuff, and then you still, your latest adventure was a DM's Guild, and Secrets of Skyhorn Lighthouse was DM's Guild. So you kind of
Hmm.
have both sides of that field
Yeah,
cornered,
both
I
are great
think.
things. They
Yeah,
both have their benefits. So I'd say, like, I would not neglect both. I would try to foster both.
yeah, that's a good tip too. All right, let's see. Continuing on. Do you try to avoid tropes or cliches, or do you embrace them?
Oh, I embrace them totally. Like, I mean, because here, think of it this way, we have more new players coming to the game than ever in the history of D&D. And a lot of them haven't experienced those tropes yet, and they want them as like the cultural touchstone of the game. Like if you don't start a game in a bar at least once in your D&D career, you're kind of missing out, honestly. You're not going to get all the jokes. So, um, I mean, don't make every adventure just tropes and don't use it to exclusion, but absolutely put some tropes in your things because those are the binding experiences that bring all D&D players together, and then we all get each other's inside jokes then. So like totally.
Yeah, I agree. That's all. I agree.
Mhm. Yeah.
No argument there. Going down. Okay. This one is from Alpha Stream, and they are asking, you seem to work really hard on maintaining the newsletter. Do you find that time pays off for you, and what are your best marketing spins? Um, let's just focus
Oh
on the
yeah.
newsletter question for that one.
I do. I have a newsletter. It's I mean, for me it's kind of my community. Like I don't have a Discord. I have a presence on social media, but I don't think it's something that I invest my main effort into. I have an email that newsletter that I send out like every 2 weeks or so, and then I announce like new products and things on there. And I really view that as the Arcane Library community because I get so many responses from so many people that are just wonderful to read. Like questions and like recaps and like insights, and just I love getting those messages from people and knowing that we can have a direct dialogue that's really not under scrutiny by anybody else.
Yeah.
Like it's not on social media for other people to chime in and like get mad about what somebody said because they didn't agree with it. Like I think there's something really honest and connection based about email, and that's why I put most of my effort into that. Um,
That's a good point.
but
And you've come up with
yeah,
some really interesting topics to write about. Your
thank
minimalist
you.
one was the last one I actually read, but I was like,
Mhm.
that's something you don't think about too much. And so I appreciate
Yeah,
those myself.
thank you. I try to like, I've thought about this. I'm like, should I do like a blog or something? But I really like sending the people who are so excited about what I'm doing these like direct messages that are kind of like my best thoughts and ideas and what I'm
Mm,
thinking about at the moment that might be interesting or fun for people to use, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a good question. Um, what is more nerve-wracking, playtesting for friends or playtesting for strangers?
Oh, totally for friends. Cause you're like, because you know they don't want to upset you and like you want them to think it's cool, but like there's this whole extra layer of like, because you guys care about each other's opinions so much, it I think it actually makes it harder to be honest. And so
Which is why
that's
you
why I
do
go
it
the stealth
sneaky.
route.
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't played tested for strangers, so I don't have that other side of it.
hmm
Let's see. Seeing if there's any others. I think we got them.
We
I
got
think we got all
current.
the questions. That was so many.
Yay.
I never. Usually, I get like one or two, and it's usually like, okay, I gotta have follow up questions. But that was so many.
Oh, thanks,
Thank
you
you for
guys.
coming on the show, Kelsey.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Before we log off, where can everyone find you online, and what can they expect to see?
Yeah. So you can find me on thearcanelibrary.com. On there, you could join my mailing list newsletter. You get a free adventure for doing that. And then you get kind of like blog like articles from me. And I announce all of my new releases through there too. So whether it's on like DM's Guild or whether I self publish, which I do more often, you will see it first in that case. And that's probably the best way to follow what I'm doing.
All right, and that is linked in the description. I think of this one, definitely of the last video when we crashed. It's definitely in that description. So, guys, make sure you go check out Kelsey's work. And if you go on DM's Guild, you have Secrets of Skyhorn Lighthouse, which I believe is free, right?
It is.
Which I think is great. Um,
Thank you.
Jack, we asked the GM tip question earlier. Go check the other one.
Oh, no.
Jack Grimble he comes by every stream, and that's his favorite question. And today we did it a little earlier. So sorry you missed that, Jack, but it is in the other stream. I did ask her earlier on in the show.
I could throw one more out there.
Yeah, why not? Throw one more.
Yeah, like roll less dice and just make executive decisions. You know, like if the players are like, "Can I see it?" Don't be like, "Roll perception." Just be like, "Yes, you can," or "No, you can't."
That is a good one. I've heard that a lot more lately too. That don't get bogged down in the dice unless
Yeah,
it's
because
something that would take a lot of effort.
it's like a delaying tactic, so you can think for a lot of DMs. I think personally, I've done it. I totally do it, but yeah, just be decisive in either way. Then the game will keep moving.
Yeah,
So
that is really good. Again, thank you, Kelsey, for coming on the show. This was a pleasure. A little more
thank you.
comfortable. We did have technical difficulties, just like at GaryCon last year.
Yes, this time my
I
hat
think
wasn't
it's
trying to like
tradition.
escape. I wasn't wearing one. I was like, I'm not doing that this time.
Yeah. So it was fun though. So I appreciate you taking the time
Yeah.
in this quarantine world that we were in. It's always good
Cool.
to connect and talk and stuff. So guys, make sure you follow her on Instagram and everywhere. No, there are no streams next week. I'm taking a hiatus to kind of get my feet back from under me. This stream has been a lot of fun, but a lot of work, and I'm trying to, get on my feet and get everything organized again. So we'll be back Monday, May 25th with another guest once I find one, and we will continue from there. So thank you guys for watching.
Thanks for joining us.